if you watch somebody get shamed, you're not going to want to do the thing. And social and public shaming can be a valuable form of democratic social control precisely because it's horizontal. It consists of people holding one another to account, even and especially in cases where there's no recourse to formal authority. So public shaming is one potentially valuable way to ensure that people adhere to, for example, the democratic norms of equality, and that they do not engage in norm violations of that principle by engaging in things like hate speech. And we know from empirical research that shaming can work really, really well at doing both of these things. We also know, however, that while shame can serve an important role in social sanctioning, it doesn't always do this. There's a lot of evidence that shame punishments can not only misfire, but it can also backfire, that being shamed can actually lead to disengagement and resentment rather than atonement and repair. So what influences whether public shaming succeeds or fails? Scholars have identified 4 social conditions required for effective public shamings. The first is the presence of shared norms. For public shamings to work as a method of social sanction, it requires that the shamers or the targets of shaming have a shared sense of what the norms are and why violations are a problem. So you can't effectively shame somebody if they don't know even what you're sort of talking about. For public shaming to effectively sanction these norm violations, however, it's not enough that those norms exist. Both the targets of shaming and the audience must recognize that the shamers have the authority to control the actions of the shamed. You have to sort of respect the person shaming you as someone who can legitimately exercise that kind of power over you. And without these 2 things, public shamings are likely to fail, and they might even result in what scholars call a shame backlash, where the person doing the shaming actually gets most of the sanctioning. In addition to recognizing the shamer's authority to sanction violations of shared norms, effective public shaming also depends on the presence of reputational considerations on the part of the shamed. So because public shaming is a reputational punishment, the only real thing that it sort of gets to you in terms of punishment is that it hurts your reputation or your standing within the community. So you have to care about your reputation if the public shaming is going to be corrective. And finally, for public shaming to work as a form of positive social control rather than a process of stigmatization, harassment, or worse, it has to occur in a context where there's the possibility of reintegration. So the person being shamed has to be given the opportunity to atone for their norm violation and to be accepted back into the community without stigma. So once this process has completed, everything has to go back to normal and you can't be sort of further ostracized. There's a difference between ostracization and public shaming. So you can think about how public shaming works, these 4 conditions, by thinking of a quiet car on a rail line or a bus maybe in an early morning commute. There are shared, although informal, norms of quietness in these spaces. It's unlikely that you're going to get officially punished or reprimanded for violating them, though quiet cars sort of vary on that. But people in these spaces tend to recognize one another's authority. So if someone shushes you on the bus, you understand that they have the authority to do so because you are in a public space and they are a member of the public. If public shaming is going to work, though, and to get you to change your behavior, you also have to be the kind of person who cares what people on the bus think about you. And this is more likely to happen in situations like regular commuting, where you see the same people over and over again. Finally, once you've apologized and you're quiet again, everyone kind of goes about their business. So you're not continually sort of, again, ostracized as being a deviant for this kind of norm violation. And so the reason why shaming works so well in those kinds of spaces is because they're characterized by what sociologists call a closed network structure. This is a community where people have many overlapping connections, like a school where parents all know each other, or a workplace where people frequently run into each other over and over again. It's because we have many connections to each other, both first degree and beyond. It means that people we know also know one another. So if you look at the closed network picture on the slide, right, the red person has many people that they have in common with others, which means that there's more people around to sanction. It means that people's reputation matters more. There's more places or lines of communication for your bad reputation to spread. The closed network makes it more likely that the people in the network share norms with one another just because there's more connections, and it's more likely that they care what others think. It's more likely also then that we know how to apologize because there's a defined community that we can apologize to. So it's in a closed network structure, I argue, that shaming is more likely to work.